This is the story behind the classic Supreme Clientele.
Killer is 4 years removed from releasing his debut album Iron Man, which was released in October of 1996. That album will peak at number 2 on the Billboard 200 charts, selling 156,000 copies in its first week. Before Supreme Clientele, Ghostface would be going through a lot in his life, including a near-death experience that led him to the country of Benin in Africa. This is where the early stages of Supreme Clientele were written and was the birth of what many consider to be one of the greatest rap albums of all time. But before I get more into the video, I would first like to thank you guys for coming to see this. If you like the content, you should like, comment, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Also, follow my Instagram too. That would be greatly appreciated. You guys can always reach out and just show me some love. It's all good. Let me know. You guys can always reach out and just show me some love. It's all good. Let me know where you're from. Represent where you're from, especially if you're representing Staten Island or any part of New York. Comment down below your favorite songs from Supreme Clientele and why. Most importantly, comment down below what it was like for you when this album first dropped.
My favorite song off Supreme Clientele, One. That song is fucking incredible, bro.
Because those are my favorite comments to read. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Hi, I'm Ross. I'm the CEO of Zen Business. I wake up every day with a single...
Before we get into Supreme Clientele, we have to take a look at the state of Ghostface and the Wu-Tang Clan during this period. With the release of his debut album Iron Man in 1996, Ghostface Killah would be the 5th member of the Wu-Tang Clan to release a solo album after the group's debut album. Before the release of Iron Man, he was heavily a part of Raekwon's Only Built for Cuban Links album, which I recently did a video on, link in the description. Before the release of Iron Man, Ghostface Killah was under a lot of pressure because prior to that point,
that's a fire TV, bro. I want a TV like that.
Had a good or classic album. The albums that came before him were Method Man's The Cal, ODB's Return to the 36 Chambers, the Dirty Version, Raekwon's Only Built for Cuban Links, and GZA's Liquid Swords. I think that RZA should get a lot more credit for his run during this time, but even though things were going very well for the clan, they would run into some huge problems. By the late 90s, it seemed as if the Wu-Tang Clan were running out of steam.
Oh wait, dude.
Released his
Mighty Healthy on Supreme Clientele?
Debut album The Pillage in March of 1990.
That might be my favorite.
Method Man released The Cal 2000 Judgment Day in November of 1998. RZA released his debut album Bobby Digital in November of 1998. GZA released Beneath Earth in June of 1999. ODB released his sophomore album in September of 1999. gawd released his debut album Golden Arms Redemption in October of 1999. Inspectah Deck finally released his debut album in October of 1999, which was Uncontrolled Substance, and Raekwon released his sophomore album in November of 1999. Now, numbers wise,
so 99
pretty decent. I believe the only platinum album from all of these is Method Man's, and the rest went gold except gawd's and Inspectah Deck's. With that being said though, a lot of those albums, although some did good, some aren't held in the highest regard when it comes to Wu albums. They weren't on the level of a Liquid Swords or Only Built for Cuban Links to many people. For instance, Inspectah Deck's album suffered severely because of 2 floods that occurred that ultimately changed Wu-Tang and rap history. Raekwon's sophomore album is commonly referred to as a major sophomore slump.
But you know what? Immobilarity, like, I listened to that album and I thought it was still pretty decent, bro. Like, I don't know, like, I'm the type of person, like, I'm an album dude, you know what I mean? So like when I started getting into hip hop, I would listen to the whole album as opposed to, like, you know, just the songs on the, because there also wasn't streaming or nothing, you know what I mean? You had to buy the album or download the album or whatever. And like, I like to listen to stuff in order. And yeah, Mobilarity, I didn't think it was that bad, bro, but I feel like, yeah, up to the standards of like Wu-Tang and stuff, I can see why people might have not been as happy as
compared to his first album, but those are just two examples. It should also be noted that the Wu-Tang Clan as a crew dropped the album Wu-Tang Forever in June of 1997, and that album did very well and is actually their highest selling album to date, with it being 4 times platinum. With all this being said, I just wanted to give you a little backstory on the events that happened prior to Supreme Clientele to give you guys a picture of what was happening with the crew. Ghostface Killah is seen as someone who really held down the crew musically during the late 90s and throughout the 2000s. The beginning of Supreme Clientele was written in Africa, in the country of Benin, where Ghostface Killah underwent a spiritual and cultural awakening. In an interview, Ghost said, "F all this Tommy Hilfiger, polo, all this stuff. They don't give a F about none of that in Africa. Everything is the same. But over here, everybody want to be better than the next. Nah, it's not like that over there. They might be effed up money-wise, but trust me, them and Memphis is happy. Them dudes in harmony because they got each other." While Ghostface Killah was in Benin, he wrote the early parts of what went on to become
That's
songs
nice. He got like a
One and Buck 50 in a dirt floor hut. The reason why Ghost went to Benin is because he didn't trust modern medicine. He went to Africa
like a change
to
of
see bush
perspective.
doctors after his diabetes had gotten to the point where it almost killed him. Ghostface lived in a small village with no running water and wrote rhymes to no music. This trip to Africa would also impact his writing style, with Ghostface saying, "When I was rhyming on Nutmeg and One on Supreme Clientele, I made a style that I couldn't even tell
that
what it
song
was.
is
I just wanted to use
amazing,
some words
guys.
that sounded good with each other, and everybody's trying to decipher what I mean, when really I don't even know what it means because I had no beat. But something said, make a record, write a verse real quick, just putting words together, whether you mean something or not. Just put them together. That's what I did with Nutmeg and One, but it was Nutmeg that set it off." Upon coming back to the US, Ghostface had some legal situations that he had to deal with. Ghostface Killah was charged with robbery from an incident that took place in 1995. There was an altercation outside of a Manhattan nightclub during which a valet attendant was allegedly assaulted and robbed of $3,000. With this, Ghostface ended up spending 27 days locked up after pleading guilty to a lesser charge of attempted robbery. To make matters even worse, in 1997, Ghostface was arrested in Harlem for wearing a bulletproof vest and weapons possession after being stopped by police for a traffic violation. With this case, Ghostface ended up being locked up for 4 months. In the summer of 1999 is when he was finally released. This obviously delayed Supreme Clientele because the album was supposed to drop in May of 1999, then was pushed back to July of 1999, then was pushed back again to January of 2000, before ultimately releasing in February of 2000. Before going to prison, Ghostface would record for Supreme Clientele, and after his release in the summer of 1999, he would continue to record for the album. The first glimpse that we got of what Supreme Clientele was going to sound like was from the song Mighty Healthy, which was released in late 1998. After Wu-Tang Forever, RZA voluntarily stepped back from producing a majority of Wu-Tang projects. His noticeable absence is one of the major factors in the lukewarm reception of the second round of Wu-Tang solo albums. When it was time for Ghostface to record his sophomore album, RZA took an active role in overseeing the project. This album was the most involvement that he had in a project besides his own after the Wu-Tang sophomore album. RZA has production credits on almost half of the tracks on Supreme Clientele. This is way more than Raekwon's sophomore album, which was released a couple months prior in November of 1999. This album has no production credits from RZA at all, let alone a Ghostface Killah feature. So it was a big deal that RZA was now more involved. In December of 1999, the single Apollo Kids was released for Supreme Clientele. 2 months later, Ghostface Killah would release his sophomore album Supreme Clientele, which peaked at number 7 on the Billboard 200 chart, selling 134,000 copies in its first week. A month after its release, the album was certified gold by the RIAA and has yet to go platinum, which is really interesting considering it went gold only a month after its release. Now, when I originally did this video a while back, I was made aware that there is a completely different version of this album, which is the Canadian version. There was a comment on the old video stating the differences. According to the comment, the song Ghost Dini has a totally different beat. This is the same beat that the Ruthless Bastards used for their song Bastard, which appeared on the Wu-Tang Killer Bees The Swarm compilation album, which was released in July of 1999. I prefer the version of Ghost Dini that we have now. The second change was that the song Child's Play doesn't have the drum roll in the beat, and the beat does not switch before Ghostface's second verse. Some other changes are that the song The Grain doesn't appear on the Canadian copy. Ghostface only has one verse on Wu Banga 101 instead of 2. The track listing is different, and there are only 14 songs on this version compared to 21 songs on the standard version of the album. Mind you, these are some of the difference, as there are a few more minor differences. There would also be a song called In the Rain, aka Wise, which doesn't appear on any other copy of the album besides the Canadian version. It honestly sucks that this song never made it to the standard version of Supreme Clientele, because it's one of the best Ghostface songs that I've ever heard. It samples the dramatic song In the Rain, and I believe the sample for this song didn't
I think I've heard that version actually. I don't know.
On the Hidden Dark Special Edition compilation album, which
I've heard that sample many times. I love the dramatics.
As Wise. This track has a different.
Did you say dramatics or Delphonics?
I prefer the version that appears on this album compared to the remix. The meaning behind this song is really sad, and this is what Ghostface had to say about it. I wrote this next song for Wise. That's my brother right there. My brother just got shot. I was down in Miami. One night I went outside to the beach with a box. I was the only one out there at the time. I threw on the dramatics in the rain. I took a couple of puffs of weed and stuff. It started raining, and the song is called In the Rain. It was like a coincidence on how this stuff was going down. I started catching the rhyme. First line, second line, and the more I wrote, the more it rained. But I was like, F it, because there was an energy that just kept me there. A force, nah, I mean, every time I wrote a line and then thought I might change it, it would rain harder. Like it was saying, don't touch nothing. So I'd keep it. I was out there for 4 or 5 hours. And you know how big the beach is. I looked out at the water and it was just mad dark. And I'm on the sand. And I'm writing about Wise. So you know I started crying a little bit. As the tears was coming down, something said turn to the right.
Funny.
I looked over and there was a pyramid built in the sand. Out of nowhere, the music was still going. I got up, walked around the pyramid 3 times, said all praise due Allah. Couple of tears came out again, but it was all good because I was there. You know, I was free. Rest in peace to Wise.
Yeah, my guy did a crazy ritual.
Manager of Killer Army at a point in time. Supreme Clientele is highly praised, and Ghostface thinks that this album is better than his Iron Man album, which was his debut album. He believes that Supreme Clientele is where he hit his stride. Further about this, he would say, I was in a better place, nah, I mean, happier, so that was just a vibe. Whatever I'm doing at that time in my life comes into the studio all the way into the booth with me. There's some darkness, but it's not throughout the whole record. It was also the order of the music. Sequencing is important, and a lot of dudes don't really do it. This record is like a 12-round fight, dog. If you think it stumbles in the 7th, it'll come out in the 9th round swinging. I changed this album around like 12 effing times, dog, just to get the mood right and stuff. Even though Ghostface Killah doesn't really feel his debut album, fans still love Iron Man, with some even saying that his debut is better than his sophomore ever. Regardless of this, there's no denying that Supreme Clientele is when Ghostface was on another level. This will wrap up the first part of the video, where I discuss the history leading up to the album, and in the second part of the video, I will break down the history behind it.
Damn, I'm not doing too good at in this race either.
For the popular 60s kids show, The Invincible Iron Man. One of Ghostface Killah's nicknames is Tony Stark's, who is the name of the iconic comic book character Iron Man. Obviously, as many know, Ghostface went on to name his debut album after this character. Fun fact, years later, Ghostface Killah's love for Iron Man would pay off, as he was
he's in the movie, right?
In the 2008 Iron Man movie, but sadly his scene in the movie got cut. Nonetheless, he got to meet Robert Downey Jr., who plays Iron Man, and he told Ghostface that Ghostface was the real Tony Stark's. Real cool stuff if you ask me. The intro of the album would then fade into the song Nutmeg, which is a definite highlight of this album and really showcases the rhyming style that I talked about earlier. Ghostface would be questioned about this song and he would say, you know, I don't like to take stuff too seriously. That street stuff is good too, but it doesn't
just
show
a
no
free-form
creativity
train of
because
thought.
everyone is doing that. When I was doing Nutmeg, I was rhyming with words that people probably never even said. It doesn't even make no sense. I wanted to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
No one could stop me because I did it how I wanted. Cause yo, if I wanted to write something down that you wouldn't understand, yo, I'ma do it. I'm the first one that did it and made songs that made no sense to nobody. That's me. I made history with that one. Nah, I mean. A really interesting fact about Nutmeg is that it was produced by Ghostface's old barber of all people. He goes by After Nutmeg would come the song One, which is produced by Juju of the Beatnuts. This is another phenomenal track, but sadly, I couldn't really find any history behind it. The song Saturday Night would follow One, and this is a song about Ghostface Killah getting harassed by the police on a Saturday night. Earlier, we talked about the legal issues that Ghostface had to deal with before this album, but years later, it would be revealed that the FBI was in fact investigating the Wu-Tang Clan. The investigation happened from 1999 to 2004. There's an infamous picture of Ghostface Killah, Method Man, and James Comey. I don't know if it's Comey or Kami, that Ghostface posted on Instagram. For those who don't know, James is the former head director of the FBI, but didn't start until 2013. He was an assistant U.S. attorney and then a U.S. attorney back when the FBI was investigating the Wu-Tang Clan. The three happened to be backstage for The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and Ghostface would post that he was working with James to get the album Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, which was owned by the U.S. government for a period of time. But now we're getting a little bit too far ahead of ourselves. Ghostdini is the 5th track on the album and features Lord Superb, who ended up passing in 2018. This is the man that claimed that he actually ghost wrote for this album. This has obviously been debated. Now, I've always wanted to do a video about the history that the Wu-Tang Clan and G-Unit has together, but words would be exchanged between Tony Yayo of G-Unit and Ghostface Killah of the Wu-Tang Clan over these ghostwriting claims. In an interview, Tony Yayo would say that he heard that a kid from Far Rockaway, where Lord Superb was from, wrote Supreme Clientele. Now, after this interview came out, Tony Yayo would come out and say that he was taken out of context by a journalist who overheard his conversation with a friend. Ghostface Killah would respond to Tony Yayo and the ghostwriting allegations. Yeah, I was in Europe when I heard Tony Yayo say that. That's just nonsense. I still put mad stuff out. Perb was Perb, Ghost was Ghost. Perb is Ray's man. He been in the studio a few times while we're doing stuff. He ain't write stuff. All Perb contributed was a couple of lines that you could put in the air. When we write, we all do that. Say this one right here or put this one right here. We all catch lines with each other cause you in the studio. You got dudes around you that write. Even if he did write a verse, he could never make an album of mine. He couldn't make an album, you feel me? I made Supreme Clientele what it is. Those are my stories, based around whatever they're based upon. It's me, but Yayo can suck a fat D. Tell him I said that. This won't be the last time I talk about someone from G-Unit though. More on that later. The song Apollo Kids would follow Ghostdini. This would end up being a single for the album. The song The Grain would come after this, and once again, I can't really find much about this song. Buck 50 would appear right after this, and the title is in reference to the phrase Buck 50, which is slang for a large cut or scar across the face, usually caused by a blade or razor that requires approximately 150 stitches. Track 9 off of Supreme Clientele is Mighty Healthy and was produced by Mathematics. Besides it being a great song, the song had a great impact on two legendary producers, which are Ye and Just Blaze. Ye would say, "Me and Just love Ghostface so much, that's hip-hop's favorite rapper and one of my favorite rappers. So we were trying to make all these beats for Ghostface, and just so happens we're at Rockefeller and Jay heard them and rapped on them. We were making all these beats for Ghostface because we got so inspired by his albums. I feel like I got my whole style from Ghostface. Listen to what I'm saying. I need that in print. I feel like I got my whole style from Ghostface." That says a lot, especially coming from Ye, and that just shows you how great the production on this album truly is. Ye even sampled this song for his song New God Flow and No More Parties in LA. Part of the bridge for this song came from the song Holy War by Divine Force. RZA would talk about the link between Divine Force and the Wu-Tang Clan in an interview. He stated that GZA had a friend named Mel Quan who had a group called Divine Force. Ghostface did part of their song over, and a man by the name of Sir Ibu, who was a part of the group, approached RZA and said that he needed money due to this. Mind you, this guy and RZA were cool, so RZA ended up giving him $2,500, and that was that. After Mighty Healthy, we get to the first skit on the album, which is Woodrow the Basshead skit. Very self-explanatory skit. It's about a basshead named Woodrow. The song Stay True ends off the first half of the album. Stay True would be produced by Inspector Deck, who first produced the beat for his own song Elevation, which appeared on his debut album Uncontrolled Substance, which was released in 1999. On other versions of Supreme Clientele, the song Stay True is titled Deck's beat due to him producing the beat. The song We Made It started off the second half of the album, which was followed by Stroke of Death, which is the 13th track on the album. This track has a very dark and eerie vibe to it. 4 seconds of the sample plays, then it constantly keeps getting brought back, which was initially done by accident by RZA. The fact that he just went with it and added it to the finished song just adds to how dope this song really is. Famous comedian Chris Rock would even comment on this song, describing it as a song so gangster it makes you want to stab your babysitter. The song Stroke of Death would then fade into the intermission of the album. After the intermission ends, we get to the song Malcolm. It starts off with Ghostface Killah speaking over a Malcolm X speech, hence the name of the track. Besides this being another good track from this album, it's also notable because Ghostface raps that Wu-Tang affiliate iCham punched rapper Mace in the face over some BS. Ye would even reference this incident in his song Through the Wire, comparing his face after a car crash to how Mace's face felt after this incident. There are rumors that it was actually Ghostface who did this. Shaheem, who's also a Wu-Tang Clan affiliate, would reference this in a song called Win, where he said that Ghostface Killah retired Mace. Some people claim that this incident never even happened, but it is what it is, honestly. After Malcolm would come the Who Would You F skit, which lists off various women and whether you would F them or not. There's a change up when the question of who would you rather do a robbery with, Lady of Rage or Rod Digger. Personally, I'm going with Lady of Rage, but that's just me. Following the Who Would You F skit, we get met with the song Child's Play, wherein the song Ghost reminisces about a schoolyard romance. You guys are going to have to excuse me because your boy does not speak French, but Churches Le Ghost would be the next track after this, and it would sample the 1976 song Churches Le Femme by Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah band. I tried to look up what exactly Churches Le Femme translates to from French to English, but it doesn't translate well. It roughly translates to look for the women, so I guess the title of the song would be to look for the ghost. This ended up being a single for Supreme Clientele and ended up peaking at number 98 on the Billboard Hot 100. Even though Method Man doesn't appear on this song, he's still connected to the first couple of lines in Ghostface's verse. Method Man would say that the lines come from a song called I Gets Down for My Crown, which he wrote when he was 16. The song Churches Le Ghost itself came about by accident. One of the engineers that were working on Supreme Clientele had a wife and he was making an album with her. The engineer would play the song for Ghostface Killah, who liked it and wanted it for his own album, which ended up happening. This song ended up being the second to last song that Ghostface did for Supreme Clientele. This is why he put You God on the song, because he wasn't on the album already. Wu Banga 101 would be the Wu-Tang Posse cut on the album, and as the title says, it's an absolute banger with everybody coming in and slaughtering the beat. After this, we have the Clyde Smith skit. This skit is noted as one of the first responses to the infamous 50 Cent record How to Rob, where 50 Cent talks about robbing various rappers. 50 Cent pretty much went at all the hottest rappers at the time, even though at this point 50 Cent wasn't very big compared to them. 50 Cent sent shots at Raekwon, Ghostface Killah, RZA, and ODB on that song. How to Rob officially dropped in 1999, and obviously this album came out in February of 2000. Upon listening to this skit, you would notice that Ghostface isn't on it, and instead is actually Raekwon under the character of Knuckles or Clyde Smith. Now in the last video, people said that this isn't Raekwon on the skit, but the person talks exactly like Raekwon, the same cadence and the same slang. His voice is just pitched down. The skit is almost 3 minutes long and is some of the funniest stuff I've ever heard, especially when Ray calls 50 Cent a da-dun-dun-dun. Like, when he called him a da-dun-dun-dun, I started crying. Like, I started crying laughing. But the last track on the album would be Iron's theme conclusion, where the album concludes. This album is without a doubt a classic, no debate. First ballot Hall of Fame, no question. I mean, look at the reviews online from both critics and fans. People love this album dearly and for good reason. All in all, what do you guys think of Supreme Clientele? Is it a classic or not?
Seriously.
Let me know what you thought of the video. I love you guys with all my heart. Peace.
Yeah, great video, dude. All right, that was Clout Cancun with Supreme Clientele, the story behind a classic. Yeah, I do love that album. Great video. Yeah, I'm gonna subscribe.